I can certainly ask another question. The Gospel of Mark, um, it has sophisticated literary structure, devices, artificial plot structures, revamped vignettes from the Old Testament.
Yeah, all these things that make it very clear that whoever wrote that was a Greek-trained, very literate, very aristocratic, very sophisticated writer.
Yeah,
And,
a lot of pagan myth, Homer, obsession
yeah.
with the number 3, triplets.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and just a ring structure and composition like that, things that just didn't happen by accident.
Yeah, I was
And
going to ask you about the ring structures and chiasm. How is, this is obviously not history. It's not written like history. In fact, you said it has a poetic license to kill, right?
it does. And the funny thing about it is the language that he uses, the Koine Greek form that he uses, is this deliberately folksy, Matlock style. Well, shucks, them Duke boys, style Greek. And yet it's genius. It's trying to make it sound like it's just a simple old country folk, telling a simple story.
Yeah. And yet there's symmetry to it all.
And there's symmetry to it, and there's allusions to ancient Greek myth and to ancient Hebrew myth as well. And just about every single thing is done there. Hello. Oh, I think we've lost Phil. He's been.
No, I'm here.
All right. Almost everything that happens in the gospel, according to Mark, has an allegorical component to it, all from start to finish. And even all that aside, when you look at the way he's describing who his Jesus is, his Jesus doesn't sound like our Jesus. He sounds like he's a normal guy who could be tempted by Satan, could be tempted to quit at the Garden of Eden, Garden of Gethsemane, rather. He's a normal guy who was just amazingly faithful to God, and God worked his miracles through him. And because he was faithful to him unto death, even death on the cross, that's when Jesus became Lord. Up at his baptism, he was adopted. But Mark's Jesus is a normal human being. And
I have a question about that, Dave.
Well, and it's so fascinating to see that they took that in later Gospels and ran with it in different directions.
Yeah, he evolves as the time goes on, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, you say Mark's a regular guy, yet because of his role in that story and what he's doing going around, numerous people are saying, is he Elijah? Is he this other person? You know? So I think isn't there some implication that he is a god? Or that he may be a god, that they don't know.
Honestly, I don't think that's what's going on. I mean, I can see how you could make that case in the other Gospels. I mean, John's for sure. John, his Jesus is walking around from day one, practically has it engraved on his T-shirt that I am God. It's amazing he didn't get stoned for blasphemy right out of the gate, But Mark's very different. And Mark's feels very much like a mystery faith god, a deity figure. But to me, I don't see him as a divine figure from the get-go, because the author of Mark goes out of his way to say that this is just a normal guy, and at his baptism, God adopts him, and at his death, God exalts him. But until then, he's a normal human being. And when I read his stories about him being tempted by the devil, being tempted to quit at the Garden of Gethsemane, when you read them as a normal human being who's scared about dying and what's going to happen, there's so much more pathos to them, and there's so much more moving than they are with someone like John's Jesus, where he's Superman right out of the box, and he's bored with it all and is issuing orders from the cross. It's like none of that makes sense. There's no drama in that. It's very moving in that original story, which is why the Gospel of Mark was so groundbreaking, and why every other gospel we have is taken from that allegorical